What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. Today's video, we're going to give you our Week 12 highlights and Overreaction Monday takes. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, over 85% of you are still not subscribed to the channel. Please be sure to hit that red subscribe button and turn on notifications, as it will help us create more daily content for you. Thank you and enjoy today's video. Alright Nick, week 12 is almost behind us with all of the terrible football that we've seen this weekend. I'm almost happy that it's over and that we get to just cleanse ourselves. We saw 3 Thursday games, and with Thanksgiving, obviously not great football on Thursday, as we have come to see all year long. But with the games that we did see, we saw a lot of shape-shifting happening with the playoff picture and a lot of teams falling into place. I want to start off with one team, one game specifically that we were really looking forward to, and that being the New England Patriots and the Tennessee Titans up in Foxborough. The Titans came into this game severely handicapped with no A.J. Brown, no Julio Jones, no Derrick Henry, the whole gambit, missing other players on defense like Rashaan Evans. It did not bode well for the Tennessee Titans. In fact, they were in it pretty close up until halftime, and then coming out of halftime, it was all Patriots all the way. They didn't look back, and they just absolutely delivered an onslaught on the offensive side of the ball. Nick, I want to get your thoughts on this one. Patriots, Titans, they obviously beat the Titans to get into first place in the AFC East. They're now second place in the AFC. Are the Patriots the team to beat in the AFC?
Well, not right now, because we just saw the Baltimore Ravens win, which means they are sitting atop the AFC, and they are the team to beat. The New England Patriots were not their dominant self in this game enough for me to say that they're the team to beat right now. They have to earn that right. And the New England Patriots, they had their issues during this game. They could not get the run game going, which meant Mac Jones had to carry a lot of the burden on the offense, and he did have some issues, especially with the cold weather. That is something to monitor moving forward. As it gets colder, can he handle the outdoor temperatures in New England, in Buffalo? It's going to be something to watch, because it may affect his play and how the Patriots perform for the rest of the season. But overall, the Patriots defense is the real key to their success, what's keeping them in it. And as long as they stay stout, they're one of the toughest teams to beat in the AFC, and they could definitely take a hold of the entire AFC, because the Baltimore Ravens have a very tough schedule upcoming, and the Patriots, they have the Buffalo Bills twice and the Colts, but their defense is playing sound enough where they could definitely go out and beat those teams.
We said going into this game that this was the start of the real test for the Patriots. Even if the Titans were without those players that we mentioned before, they still had Kevin Byard, they still had Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons. They had all of these guys that were able to really make an impact on this game, whether it was for better or for worse. And at the end of the day, the Patriots took down the #1 seed in the AFC. I like where they're heading right now, but as you talked about, over the next 4 weeks, they have 3 very difficult games, 2 against the Buffalo Bills. For our next game, I want to talk about the San Francisco 49ers defeating the Minnesota Vikings in what was a really great football game to watch, one of the very few good football games to watch this weekend. Nick, I want to get your take about the Minnesota Vikings. It seems like they're struggling. They put it together and then they struggle again. Put it together and struggle again. Can they be a team that could make it to the playoffs and make some noise with the way they're playing?
Well, I think that the Minnesota Vikings have their upsides and their downside. Their upside being the receiving game, and the downside right now is the running attack. You see Dalvin Cook, when he's out there, he's not effective with the offensive line, just unable to get blocks. Guys just coming untouched from the defensive side of the ball, just completely plowing him in the back of the field. And this is just routine. This is consistent. And Madison, same thing. When he's out there, he has a little bit more success, but that's just because he's a little bit more of a passing threat. They don't do a great job of mixing it up with these running backs. And then we see Dalvin getting hurt. Does not help this offense moving forward, in the defense having their issues. Everything with Everson Griffin that went on during the week they had to deal with. The secondary is still playing very bad. I just think the Vikings are not that great. They've been getting away with big plays by Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, but that's not going to carry them success going to the playoffs if they want to compete, especially with the Packers in their division. I think the 49ers, who beat them, are a better team right now in the NFC. The 49ers started out weak, but they're getting stronger week over week, and right now I think the 49ers are a much stronger team than the Minnesota Vikings.
The Minnesota Vikings are a question mark in my mind because on paper, they seem to be one of the better teams that we have in the NFL, with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen balling out the way they have. I mean, just looking at their stats, it looks like these guys are all pro level. I mean, they look like one of the best wide receiver combinations we have in the NFL, and yet this team is still losing football games. And even on the defensive side of the ball, it seems like they're clicking, but they just can't put things together. They have a really good drive, force a 3 and out, and all of a sudden then they're giving up a touchdown or a field goal, and a team gets an 8-minute drive on them where they're not going to be able to stop anything. I think there's a lot of issues going on here, and I don't want to say this, but I think Mike Zimmer has to go. I think this is the time where they have missed on players in the draft. They have missed on free agents. They have not been able to get this defense going. I think this is the time where we have to take a step back and say, Mike Zimmer, he may not be the whole problem, but he's definitely not helping. And I think some sort of change at the head coach position needs to take place for the Minnesota Vikings to be a true contender. I don't like it because I like Mike Zimmer as a person, but at the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings need something to light a fire under their ass.
Yeah, I think that you got to give Mike Zimmer the rest of the season, at least to prove himself. They could still make the playoffs and go on a run if they turn things around. They just got to fix some key parts of their game on both sides, and they could definitely get there. But I do believe that Mike Zimmer is in the hot seat for sure.
Well, you know who else has to fix some key things on both sides of the football? The Los Angeles Rams. The Rams took on the Green Bay Packers in what I thought would be the game of the weekend. It would be a very telling game based on how this game went, on what teams we were going to see moving forward. I thought the Rams were going to come out swinging. They had 2 weeks to prepare for this one. Odell Beckham Jr. and Von Miller really getting into the game a little bit more and being a part of this team. We didn't see that. Matthew Stafford struggled, even though he had some really good highlight plays. He struggled most of the day. And that, again, the Packers defense still missing Jair Alexander, still missing Zadarius Smith, not fully healthy. And on top of that, I figured that the Rams defense would easily take advantage of the hole at left tackle with no Elgton Jenkins and no David Bakhtiari. Aaron Rodgers was almost untouched all day. It was unbelievable. At the end of the day, the Rams are just not who we thought they were. They remind me a little bit of some of the NBA teams we've seen, like the Brooklyn Nets, where you just have so much talent that there's so much expectation and so much burden on you that you are just not performing. I think that's what's happening to the Rams right now, with the additions of OBJ and Von Miller on top of Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and everybody else that they have. Nick, I want to hear from you. Do the Rams have too much expectation on them? Should we temper our expectations for what this team can do until we see a player like Matthew Stafford, who comes from a losing organization? Should we roll back our thoughts and our ideas on this team when they haven't really shown us anything yet?
No, I don't think that we need to temper our expectations for what we want out of the Los Angeles Rams. This is a playoff-bound team. They're a Super Bowl-bound team if they're clicking and they're working together, and that's just not what we're seeing. When you bring over two guys at the trade deadline and you expect them to perform right away because of their prior success, you can't expect that, because it's going to take time for them to not only learn the system that they're playing in, but to get the chemistry with the quarterback, get the chemistry with the linebackers and the defensive line that's next to you. You have to figure that out, and you cannot figure that out on the fly. That takes time. And unfortunately, they're having to experiment and figure it out while they're in a real game situation, and it's not working out for them. I think that the Rams will figure it out. Von Miller will get clicking with Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald, and we'll see OBJ continue to get better and better in this offense with Matthew Stafford. But it's just going to take a little bit more time, and we'll see if they can get it right before the playoffs. But they're running out of time right now. You got 5 games remaining. We'll see if they can do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you saw Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Odell Beckham Jr. all have over 80 yards receiving, so definitely a lot of disseminating of the football, and Matthew Stafford doing a good job spreading it out, which is what we've been clamoring for here on this show specifically, saying that he has been hyper targeting Cooper Kupp and it's not working out for them. Now we need to see a little bit more from the offense. We need to see more from Darrell Henderson in this running attack. Maybe they pick up a guy like Todd Gurley. Maybe they pick up somebody that they can use to offset, because Sony Michel just is not doing the job. I think that they need something to really get something going on the offensive side of the ball that's not named Matthew Stafford. All right, well, I want to switch it to our final game that we're going to cover here, and that would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts. This was one hell of a riveting matchup. The Indianapolis Colts played absolutely lights out, and they had the Buccaneers on the ropes all the way back to the beginning of the game. They intercepted Tom Brady and really started to make him look anemic, and then all of a sudden, that bad man, Tom Brady, brings his team back, just like we've seen time and time again, and all the way back until that final drive where he had almost no time for the Colts, and then that huge kickoff return brought them into what would be field goal range, but they needed a touchdown, and just a little too late, not enough time for the Colts to get anything going, and they lose this game. It was heart-pounding, it was riveting. Nick, what did you learn from this game that you didn't know prior from both of these teams?
I learned that the Indianapolis Colts are a legitimate threat to the rest of the AFC. They're one of the strongest teams on both sides of the ball, and it's time that we start taking them seriously. Just because they're number 2 in their division does not mean they're not better than the Tennessee Titans. They're going to get stronger. The Titans are going to get weaker, and the Colts are going to make their way up this leaderboard. They're going to be one of the top 4 teams by the end of the season. It's time we start giving them the respect they deserve. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's also time to start putting respect back on Tom Brady's name, back on the Buccaneers. They are the reigning Super Bowl champs, and just because they've had some bad games does not mean they are not the team to beat still. In order to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and right now, the Bucs are winning the games they have to. Just because they're losing some easy games does not mean they can't correct that, and I fully expect this team to get right back on track, starting with this win. It was a big game for them, and I expect big games for them moving forward.
I mean, we're taking a look at the Indianapolis Colts. They have some big games ahead of them. Starting off, next week they're taking on the Houston Texans, who just got defeated by Zach Wilson, or I think they defeated themselves. I'm not really sure how that one went, but they take on the Houston Texans in Houston, and divisional matchups, as we know, are never something to overlook. You take a look at the Houston Texans last week, defeated the Tennessee Titans, so it definitely something that could be on the horizon for them. But then they have a bye week, and then they're taking on the New England Patriots, and I think that will be the barometer in which we get to test both of these teams and say which team is going to live up to the hype, which team is it the one that we get to believe in as the Cinderella story for this NFL season. I think that there's a lot here to unpack, and then on top of that, they have Arizona, they have Las Vegas, they have a lot of games coming up that are going to tell us a lot about this team, a lot of quality competition. I'm excited for the Colts. I think that they have to really take it game by game, because if they start to look ahead in their schedule, they're going to get lost in the games that they're not prepared for. And I think the Colts right now have to really do a good job of staying focused and staying on task. And that's something that Frank Reich, who's not a experienced head coach, needs to be able to do with this team. Carson Wentz needs to keep this team going, and he's been playing at a lights out level. I'm really excited about the Indianapolis Colts. All right, before we jump out of here, Nick, I want to talk to you about tonight's game, Monday Night Football. We see the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Washington Football Team. Two teams headed in opposite directions. The Washington Football Team have one hell of a chance to start catching up to the Dallas Cowboys, who seem pretty anemic without Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. And now we saw the Philadelphia Eagles also going down Washington in a really good spot right now. Nick, what do you see from either of these teams, and who do you got winning?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a similar matchup to what we just saw on Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a snooze fest. It's not going to be a game you want to watch. But at the end of the day, we're going to see the Washington football team continue on their pace of winning games. The Seattle Seahawks are not playing like themselves. Russell Wilson clearly isn't healthy and is playing through multiple injuries. And I don't expect this Seattle team to figure it out against Washington, who's been playing extremely good on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be a close game, but I think the Washington football team will come out on top.
All right, I have Washington as well, and I believe that they're going to absolutely annihilate the Seattle Seahawks. DK Metcalf already dealing with an injury, and Washington's just rolling right now. They see the opportunity, and I think they're going to take full advantage. All right, well, I want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought about Week 12 and the highlights that we saw. Let us know what you think about your team and where they stand right now heading into the stretch run of the 2021 NFL season. And do you have a shot at making the playoffs? Let us know in the comments down below. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.